Wren Baker has spoken, and he has told us why and how West Virginia planned to be competitive in today's college landscape. He's also explained why he hired Coach Rich Rodriguez and Coach Ross Hodge to lead the only two profitable sports at West Virginia University. And I'm going to talk about what Wren Baker said, and I'm going to tell you right after this word from one of our sponsors. Since 1931, the attorneys at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident or fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. What is up, and welcome into this episode of Couz's Corner, your home for top shelf news and analysis around West Virginia Mountaineer sports and the Big 12. Today, I'm going to share with you some things I learned at a recent stop on the West Virginia Coaches Caravan at the resort at Glade Springs here in southern West Virginia. Wren Baker and several of the Mountaineer coaches travel around the state and even a couple of spots outside of the state doing fundraiser events, meeting with donors and fans, and just talking Mountaineer sports, giving fans a chance to meet them, things like that. Well, I was blessed to be able to go to the one at Glade Springs, and I'm going to share a little bit of what was talked about. There's also an article over at my website, wvsportschat.com, where I actually dropped some quotes from Wren Baker from that event, and I'm hoping to get other articles up about it as well. But right now we're going to focus on, and the coaches did talk to, they do a coaches, like a sort of a roundtable type situation. But in this video, we're focusing on what Wren Baker said. He explained how West Virginia plans to be competitive. He explained why he hired Coach Hodge and Coach Rodriguez. And obviously there was other things, some side conversations as well, but I wanted to focus on the highlights here in this episode. But Wren Baker, Wren Baker obviously explained to the crowd, what's going on in today's landscape. He talked about the House settlement. He talked about, the money explosion in college sports and all that. So most of us know about all this stuff, right? So I'm not going to bore you with all that. But what I am going to talk about is when Tony asked Wren, what is West Virginia doing to be competitive? I thought he had some very poignant answers. Some of the stuff you'll find interesting as West Virginia fans, and I think you're going to like it. So let's get started. He basically just first talked about how he's going to look for every revenue stream he can, right? Any way they can find to raise money, they're going to do it. He talked about naming facilities, right? We might see some names on facilities soon. Does that mean they're going to, rename the Coliseum to United Bank Coliseum or Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration Coliseum or Allstate Coliseum, whatever? Does Milan Pushkar Stadium get a different name? Do they name? Is it going to be United Bank Field inside Milan Pushkar Stadium? We don't know, but there are a lot of options. But we do know that there will be naming facilities coming up, and we all knew that was probably coming, right? In this day and age, you've got to figure out ways to earn revenue. You can sell naming rights for advertising dollars. He talked about changing the season ticket model for men's basketball. They're going to go to a per seat model. He said some people will pay less money. Now some people may pay more money. The better the seat you buy, the more money you'll pay. To be honest with you, I didn't know they weren't doing that already, but they're going to that model. And the next part is something this is the part I think most of you will find intriguing. It revolves around throwback uniforms. Just 2 days before this event, West Virginia football announced they were going to have a throwback uniform to honor the 1965 team that won the Southern Conference Championship, right? Got a lot of buzz on social media. I even did a show about it. They wrote articles about it. It was covered ad nauseum. Well, Wren talked about that. He said, we do that for 3 reasons. The first reason being it brings awareness to the program. Gets more attention to the program. Those social media posts, when they do those announcements, they get hundreds of thousands of hits, of engagements, whether negative or positive. It gets a lot of engagement, gets a lot of eyeballs on West Virginia athletics, and as in connection, West Virginia University, right? So it's all about. So it brings attention to the university in a positive way. And he even talked about how it helps sell more tickets, believe it or not. Doing those throwback uniforms helps sell tickets. So that's another bonus. Second reason, it helps them to remember and honor the teams of the past. That's what they're doing here with the 1965 team, a team that won a conference title, one of only 15 in West Virginia's history. And then lastly, and this is the part you're really going to like. This is the part you're going to like. At least, well, most of you will like, based on the survey I did about their throwback uniforms. Not all of you. It's going to allow them to sell baby blue merchandise. That's right. Baby blue West Virginia merch is coming, folks. Be on the lookout for it. Us fans gives us new merch to buy. We can buy cool new shirts, cool new hats, cool new West Virginia merch, a different collar scheme, something we don't have, something that's not hanging in our closet right now. Baby blue West Virginia merch is on the way thanks to these rollback uniforms. And how does it help West Virginia? Well, everything they sell, the athletic department makes 15% of the profit, or at least 15% of the revenue. Not sure if it's 15% of the profit, but he said they make 15% on everything they sell. So that's an advantage. Gives something new to buy and gives the athletic department another way to earn more revenue. So, baby blue merch is coming. Be on the lookout. And I for one, can't wait. Now, Wren went on to talk about how West Virginia is going to remain highly competitive. And he actually used those words, highly competitive. He talked about West Virginia having a budget of about $106 million. When you compare to Ohio State, it's like $230 million. West Virginia's never going to have one of the highest budgets. It's just not feasible. And he talked about how he's been very open and candid with his coaches about that, right? But he does think they have enough to be highly competitive. And we've heard Rich Rodriguez say he thinks they have enough to win a national championship, right? So they feel like they have what it takes. Even though it's not at the Ohio State level, at the blue blood level, they have enough to compete. And the reason that is, according to Wren, is because of the passion of the fan base, how much the fan base cares. And then he bolted onto that to talk about West Virginia Athletics. And now in this statement, I think he was kind of selling it not only to the people in that room, because we got to remember he was talking to fans and donors, right? These are people who were, and heck, everybody that was there had to, for the most part, had to pay money to be there, except the media people. Paid money to be there because you got to meet the coaches, you got to hear what they had to say, you got to mingle with other West Virginia fans, you got to eat, or well, at least most of us did. Some of us did. They actually ran out of food, but that's another conversation. That's how big it was. They actually ran out of food. But anyway, it's a way you got to pay to be there. It's a fundraiser, right? So he is somewhat placating to the crowd, and that's understandable, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it was also making a sales pitch a little bit maybe to the people in Charleston. Hey, West Virginia athletics is very important. And he talked about how it's not only important to the university, but it's important to the entire state of West Virginia because because West Virginia athletics, when it's doing well, it draws attention to the whole state because it's so recognizable, because it's such, there's no pro teams in West Virginia. West University is it. It's basically the pro team of the state. So it brings eyeballs to the state when West Virginia sports are being successful and doing well, and he thinks they're set up to do that. So he really stressed that and talked about that for really a couple of minutes. So he really wanted to stress that. I want to give a shout out to a sponsor of this show. That is Elite Scuba and Adventures. Go to elitescubaadventures.com. Also check them out on social media. They are located in Northern Virginia. But if you're looking for a place where you want to learn to scuba dive, or if you want to go on scuba diving trips and you're already a scuba diver, go check them out. Right now, they offer discounts for first responders and veterans. They also, if you put in Couz code 25 at checkout, it's COUZ CODE 25 at checkout, you also get a 5% discount, even if you're not a veteran or a first responder. But they offer PADI Discover Diving. They have open water certifications, advanced diver, and specialty courses, including dive master certifications. They also have bundle and save deals. They take several scuba trips a year. They have one that they do annually to Thailand. They're taking trips to Tigert Lake right here in the great state of West Virginia. They're also taking a trip to Key West. So check them out, elitescubaadventures.com, and let them know Couz sent you. And by the way, as a bonus, they happen to be Mountaineer fans. So support this Mountaineer fan at Elite Scuba and Adventures. Then Tony asked him to talk a little bit about the coaches and why he hired both Rodriguez. Well, he talked, he talked about his coach search process, which I don't want to bore you with because I think we've all heard him talk about that in press conferences multiple times. But he asked specifically about why did you bring Coach Rodriguez and why Coach Hodge? And he spent more time talking about Rodriguez, but here's what he had to say about Coach Rodriguez. He said, no question, he can win games in hard places. And he went on to talk about how, and of course, he's proven that he did it at Jacksonville State, one of the lowest resource school in the G5. He won a conference championship, took him to 2 bowl games, right? He was able to win and have some success at Arizona, who's at that time was not an easy place to win at. He did it at West Virginia back in the early to mid 2000s. So he's won at places where it's not easy to win. And he's look, yes, yes, West Virginia's a major program, and yes, we have what it takes to be successful. But he said not anybody can win at West Virginia. It takes a certain type of coach, and he feels like Coach Rodriguez is that guy and is that type of coach that can win at West Virginia. He talked about how Coach Rodriguez was very honest in the interview process. And when they asked him about, or when he mentioned, Coach Rodriguez leaving, that did come into play. He said, you want somebody the fans can embrace. And he said there was a lot of talk about where he had left before. So he made sure to address that in the interview process. And Coach Rodriguez, he was very honest. The same stuff he said publicly, he told Wren in the interview. And, he said, I just needed to hear him say it. I needed to hear him talk about it and address it. And he did. And Wren liked what he heard. He was also very honest about other things. He talked about how he wanted somebody to lead the program the right way. He feels Rich can do that. But, he talked about Coach Rodriguez's charisma, talked about his incredible work ethic. And here's the part he talked about that really got the crowd excited and got an ovation. He said, he comes across like the most country, good old boy West Virginian there is. So, and that's the truth. When you hear Rodriguez talk in interviews, I've met him obviously now. He's a West Virginian, and you can tell that. He doesn't hide it. And I think it's actually a positive in this case because he fits the culture of what it takes to win. And then he talked about intentionality. Coach Rodriguez has intentionality to everything he does in his job. There's intention behind it. And he likes that about him. He said he hasn't even mentioned that to Coach Rod yet, but he has noticed it. When watching Coach Rodriguez work, he likes his intentionality behind every single thing he does. And then finally, Coach Hodge. He didn't spend as much time talking about Coach Hodge, but the main thing he talked about with Coach Hodge is he's a real genuine person. He felt like he fits the culture. He talked about his own time at North Texas and how he grew up in rural Oklahoma, and coming to West Virginia for talking about Wren, coming to West Virginia was not a hard move for him because it was similar to where he came from. He felt like Coach Hodge would be that type of guy, that he would fit the culture, and that it would be somewhere Coach Hodge and his family could lay the roots down and be happy. And then, he was just a good fit and a good connection. And then he went and talked about his elite defensive coaching. He said in order to win the Big 12 and be competitive in the Big 12, you have to have an elite defense. And Coach Ross Hodge coaches defense at an elite level. And that was really, really important to him. He said, you won't even finish in the top 2 or 3 of the Big 12 if you don't have elite defense. And he talked about that's what the numbers bear out. That's what the numbers show. So he wanted somebody. So he's a good person. He will fit the culture, and he plays good defense. Coaches good defense. That's what it boiled down to. And those are the 3 things that primarily made him pick Coach Hodge to come to Morgantown. Interesting story. Coach Hodge actually, to show how small of a world it is, during the time he was up there talking, there was actually somebody in the room who's from West Virginia and is a West Virginia fan who actually was neighbors or lived in the same neighborhood as Coach Hodge in Texas. So he already knew somebody. And he told that story about how, you saw everybody with their Baylor in Texas and Texas A&M and all this other, gear on. And then here would be this guy, and I don't remember the gentleman's name, but it would be this guy with his flying WV. So it was a pretty cool story and shows just how big the West Virginia brand is, even in Dallas, down there in Dallas, Texas area, around all these Texas fans and Baylor fans and all these, TCU fans, whatever. There was this guy with the West Virginia logo right in the same neighborhood as what would end up being our head coach. Pretty interesting, pretty small world. But anyway, I just want to share that information with you. Again, go check out the article I wrote over at wvsportschat.com. I'll leave a link to it in the description. I want to give a shout out right now to my channel sponsors, Appalachia Digital, Cats, Counter, Stone Street, and Bugner, and the good friends over at Elite Scuba and Adventures. And I want to give a shout out to my VIP channel members of this episode, Brad Cheney, Jeremy Croy, Roy Harrison, and David Cummings. Thank you all for your support. If you want to be a channel member, hit the join button below or go over to my channel homepage and hit the join button over there as well. Thank you for your support. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Hope the rest of your day's top shelf, and Q Country Roads.